Hey guys, it's Crossroads here. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about Robinhood Investor Day. They had their first annual Investor Day this past week. I was there in New York checking it out live. I wanted to go through just a couple of slides, not to rehash the whole thing, but just to really isolate what I found particularly impressive, what the market likely found impressive as well, as Robinhood stock responded quite nicely through the second half of the week, and why I'm in this name long term. If you know my background, I was calling Robinhood a steal of a deal when it was back trading at $8 and $9. I, of course, bought only options. I bought leaps, profited on those immensely, but I saw this as a very cyclical play, but not necessarily one I wanted to be in long term. Their long term thesis has strengthened incredibly over this year, and this will help us really see why I'm saying that and why I'm in this really at this point now for the most part, really only having shares, just a little bit of options left as well. So, first part is just the name itself. You can see this is taken from a headline of Fast Company. It's just one example, but there's many others as well. It calls this the Robinhood era, and of course, if you have a company that defines the era, you know you're in quite a good company, or at least one that has performed well. This was actually a fairly recent headline about the New York Stock Exchange embracing the idea of extending its trading hours, partly in response to what Robinhood has done. They are a disruptor and their competition, and even if it's not competition like an entire exchange, oftentimes they have to adjust their business model to follow suit. And so, time and time again, with product after product, Robinhood has shown leadership in this space. And I think that they'll continue to do that with the culture that they have. That's one of the best things about seeing them in person in Miami and also in New York, and just the way that this team is built. Vlad, of course, is a high level operator. He is driven. And he works, around the clock basically, and he drives his team to do the same thing. They're very vision oriented, they're very mission focused, and they're supporting one another. Robinhood really impressed me in Miami last month. I saw maybe something like 50 different employees, talked to a lot of them as well. They were very open with what they thought of as a business. Some were new, some had been there a long time, and it wasn't very siloed. A lot of times, businesses, as they age, as they grow, they become very siloed, and they're like, "Hey, this is your crypto thing. It's not my thing. It has nothing to do with me." Instead, they knew exactly what the next priorities were for the business. And events like Investor Day and, of course, their summit in Miami, they'll have three next year, helped focus the team. So, looking at Investor Day, they really laid out their thesis on four different segments, and we'll talk just a little bit about each of these. First is massive market opportunity. So, if we look here, there's a couple of things going on for Robinhood. SoFi also is impacted by this as well, and some of the other plays. PayPal is certainly not hurt through this, but it's a generational wealth transfer. And so you can see this graph over here, the share of U.S. household wealth by generation. And as older generations do pass on, and then they pass their wealth on, younger generations tend to profit from that. Also, they begin to enter their earnings curve. And so you can see here the distribution of assets under custody at Robinhood. You can see it's very little what's here. And of course, there's a lot of wealth coming for those generations. For the millennials, Generation X, not quite as much, Generation Alpha, Generation Z as well. And so this wealth transfer will certainly help Robinhood over time. Now, the other slide that I thought was very impressive relating to the TAM is they talked about all these different growth opportunities, these individual products, and how they may be able to reach each of those. This is a little bit small, but you can find this on their website. And just how large the TAM is. Now, usually with a company, you want to be careful about them talking about pure TAM because every company has massive, massive amounts of TAM. But if they're not a leader in the space, if they're not very driven and very forward focused, oftentimes they are settled with just a very small piece of the pie instead of trying to take the entire market. But I don't think that's an issue with Robinhood. They're not going to succeed on every single one of these, but a lot of them they will. And so they're able to diversify quite a bit as a result of that. And we'll see here. The other thing that impressed me, actually going back to number two, product velocity and rapid market share gain. When Robinhood tends to enter a market, they tend to gobble up market share quite quickly. They talked about this, of course, that they're seen as leaders in the crypto space despite offering far fewer tokens than Coinbase, just the sheer amount of volume that passes through. Part of that is ease of use. Part of that certainly is name recognition. And part of that is they cost very low on fees as well. But more than that, they launch products maybe better than any other person and player in the space as far as fintech. And so this is two slides that I'll show you. This is their product velocity really since they were founded. So it mentions here, of course, they were the first to have commission-free trading as payment for order flow. And there's a lot of products that they've launched through the year, and they're not slowing down. This is the slide from 2024, and I know it's very small. I don't want to go through all of these details, but it's been a very busy year for Robinhood. And given what we've heard from this investor day, given what we heard from the summit, given what Vlad has alluded to as well, there's even Gold Week coming up here this next week. They have no chill. They're not just simply kicking up their heels and saying, all right, guys, we've done it. We're a massive company. Or they're not going to say, once we get in the S&P 500, that's when we can really settle back. No, they're continuing to go for it and drive full force. And I expect that will continue as long as Vlad is at the helm of Robinhood. Now, the third thing that they mentioned is that their business is growing and diversifying. This one is not quite as compelling. Now, the issue is, we'll look at the products here in just a moment, what they refer to. This is still a very cyclical company. It's less so with retirement assets that they have. Maybe with credit cards, it's a little less so as well, depending on how well that scales. And of course, they have subscription revenue from the Robinhood Gold. But there are going to be times when there is a crypto bear market at the same time as the stock bear market. Those are inevitable. It may be a little while before we see that for the stock market itself, but it will come at some point. And in those times, Robinhood is going to gain less revenue against almost every single one of these. However, I still want to show it to you because it's very impressive. We can see here that they now have 9 products total that have $100 million annualized revenue. And so you can see just recently, instant withdrawals hit that. The securities lending is certainly something that they have. Gold subscriptions, cash sweeps, margin interest, margin-based security lending, crypto trading, options trading, and equity trading. But again, almost every single one of these is going to be hit and not quite as good or potent in those times when there is a crypto winter at the same time as a bear market for the stock market. So still very cyclical. They're trying to break free from that somewhat, but there's still going to be a measure of that. Now, is it bad to invest in something that is a cyclical stock? Not necessarily. I'll link down in the description a chat that I have with Alejandro Chavez, who, even though he was kind of unconscious about doing it, he has invested in multiple winners that are highly, highly cyclical because he understands those cycles. And of course, Tesla is the name that most people know. It is a cyclical just because that's how the auto business works, and of course, energy sector as well. Now, the last little piece of this too is the powerful business model and profitable growth. That is one that I thought was pretty interesting as well. They, of course, slowed down a lot of the dilution that they had, the stock-based compensation. They mentioned multiple times that they are a tech company, and as a result, they have over $1 million in revenue per employee, which is pretty incredible. There's, of course, always room to grow, and they talked about ways to grow that as well. But what I really particularly liked hearing, and it wasn't part of the slide, their CFO, Jason Warnick, he mentioned that they had a promotion that was going on with Robinhood, the 1% everything match. And they, after running that for a little while, realized that the payback and the payoff for that was not going to be nearly what they thought it should be as a business. And so as a result, they made the decision that they would end up shuttering that here mid-December. And so if it's not already shuttered, it will be soon. That 1% everything match just did not do what they wanted it to actually do. And they mentioned that they have this certain bit of agility, that they are able to ramp up promotions or extend promotions or even start new ones if it's doing exactly what they want. And if they have a promotion or some feature that they're offering and it just is a drag on the business, they will cut their losses very quickly. A lot of businesses don't do that. They say, let's give it more time. Cutting it makes us weak, makes us look like that we don't know what we're doing. Robinhood, no, they're just all about that bottom line. They're all about whether it's working or not. And as a result, with the tech stack that they're developing, with the quality of engineers, with their fixed cost rates as well, they have a pretty compelling business model. And so, as a result, even though yes, Robinhood is still very cyclical, and there's a lot of that in their business, they have a phenomenal culture. They have a massive TAM in front of them. They've shown that they're leaders in the space. They ship products better than anybody in fintech, in my estimation. Every single industry that they enter into, they're disruptors. They're not going to win every single one of those. Of course, they're launching internationally as well. There was so much to be impressed with from Robinhood Invest Day, and so I'm very glad to be a long-term investor in Robinhood. Tell me what you think in the comments. Are you investing in Robinhood? Are you skeptical because of who the platform is, or something that they're doing, or a feature that they don't offer? I'd love to hear that in the comments. As always, thank you for following, and happy investing.